Well, to analyze what many describe as Nigeria's waning influence on the international stage and explore ways to rebuild its diplomatic strength and global credibility, I'm now being joined by Professor Chris Kwaja. He's a professor of international relations and strategic studies at the Center of Peace and Strategic Studies, Modibo Adamawa University in Yola. Thank you so much for being on the news tonight.
Thank you. Good evening,
We do appreciate your patience. I know you've been here for a bit. Professor, let me begin by asking you. We just recently heard from former President Olusegun Obasanjo at an event, I believe it was just yesterday, when he went nostalgic, memory lane, saying, you know, when he was president and the head of state, the president in the United States, Jimmy Carter at that time, would not take any decision on Africa without consulting Nigeria. And he knew that because he was president at the time. When you hear that and recent reality of the country, given what Trump has done in the past couple of weeks, that is generating reaction, what does that say about Nigeria's diplomatic influence? And how much has it shifted or declined, in your own view?
One of the first strategic decisions President Olusegun Obasanjo took upon assumption on office in 1999 was to say we must craft a foreign policy agenda that is constructive and beneficial. Constructive and beneficial to Nigerians. Beneficial to the extent that every decision in Nigeria with foreign policy implication, or every decision outside Nigeria with implication for Nigerians, must be the one that is framed on the simple logic that Nigerians must be recognized, appreciated, and respected. The constructive part was that we must be proactive in pushing forward our own strategic interests, economic, security, and all that in the international system. Within that period, NEPAD was one of the key area of focus. You recall Obasanjo had to create an office, a new ministry on integration in Africa. And that was the first time that we were doing that. Jerry Ghana was the one that chaired. Now, after the Obasanjo administration left, we saw a slide, and now we're at a point where people are really concerned about whether or not the influence of that giant called Nigeria still resonates within the international system. 4 major periods in Nigerian history that we need to appreciate. First, the Tafawa Balewa period, the golden voice of Africa, and how he projected key elements of national power or national interest of Nigeria, which led to the formation of the Organization of African Unity. The second was the Gowon administration that led to the establishment of ECOWAS. Mind you, the Murtala Obasanjo administration focused on what they call Africa as the centerpiece of Nigerian foreign policy. And the focus then was very simple: the liberation of the entire Africa. Mozambique, Angola, Zimbabwe, South Africa. We invested hugely in that project that led to the dismantling of apartheid. The Babangida administration, very important. If you go to New York today, one of the tallest buildings, just close to the UN building, is the Nigerian house. It was built by Babangida. It was within that period that the Babangida administration took 2 major decisions. One, the establishment of what they call the Technical Aid Corps, that Nigeria can use its own big brother Africa to support other countries within Africa and the Caribbean, providing technical support. The second was the crafting or the review of Nigerian foreign policy, looking at the global economy and where Nigeria sits. And within that period, the concert of medium powers project was initiated. And that was a project that placed Nigeria between the superpowers and the lower ranks in the international system.
Okay. All right, Professor, I hate to interject you because time is never really our friend on the news. We've seen a lot of travel by President Bola Tinubu since he came into office. And one of the things he has been saying on his trip is that Nigeria is back on the foreign scene. Nigeria is back on the global stage. Africa is back on the global stage. When the president says Nigeria is back, he does say one thing. He admits that there's been a decline. But then, is it doing enough to really say Nigeria is back on the stage? I mean, 2 years plus into his administration, ambassadors have not been appointed or nominated. How much of that diplomatically even plays into this conversation? But I'll come back for you to answer that. Let's take this story, which is also of international importance. Okay. Well, the Nigerian government has begun a high-level push to bring former Deputy President of the Senate, Ekweremadu, back home from a British prison. Senator Ekweremadu is serving a 9-year sentence in the United Kingdom for organ trafficking. He was convicted over a plot to bring a 21-year-old Lagos street vendor to Britain to donate a kidney for his daughter, Sonia. Well, a delegation led by Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister and the Attorney General and Minister of Justice is in London, holding talks with British justice officials. The aim is to seek a prisoner transfer agreement that would allow Ekweremadu to serve the remainder of his sentence in Nigeria. The move is reportedly part of President Tinubu's initiative to secure relief for the veteran politician on humanitarian and legal grounds. This is something I want you to respond to, but I need you to respond to ambassadors yet to be appointed, and President Tinubu saying to everyone that Nigeria and Africa is back on the front burner.
And I will give you I will use a case study, the United States. It's a country I'm familiar with because of the work I do. Now, for each trip President Donald Trump embarks on, there is a document that the American citizens look at with focus on how that trip responds to a foreign policy agenda that the Trump administration has set for itself. And that document is visible. It's read by every American. For me, as a scholar of international relations, if my president is going to France, to the United States, I should be able to analyze that trip on the basis of a foreign policy agenda that that administration set for itself. Because at the end of the day, I should be able to draw meaning from that trip to say, okay, what has been the value of a France-Nigerian relationship in the last 4 years? How is that responding, or how did that respond to the foreign policy agenda of this administration? So what needs to be done in this context is for the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to sit down to say, okay, Mr. President have undertaken how many trips? What has been the focus?
Foreign direct investments, they say?
Yeah. Beyond foreign direct investment, security is there. There's a big issue about migration. The Canadians are focused on migration. If you want to engage Canada today as an African government, the focus will be on what can we do to manage migration. Okay. Do we have a foreign policy agenda on migration, for instance?
All right.
And that is what the diaspora office need to do.
So very quickly, and I hate to interrupt you, on the Ekweremadu story, is this something that is out of the normal, out of the usual? What's your reaction to that?
It's not abnormal, and it's not unusual for countries to reach out to say, yes, we've got a prisoner of Nigerian descent in your prison. Can we get him back to Nigeria? In some instances, you negotiate the terms. There are instances where you do prisoner exchange. It's possible there are UK citizens in Nigerian prison, and the UK government will say, okay, we've got ABC prisoner in your prison. We are going to exchange. 2, We don't have maybe UK prisoners in Nigeria, but out of that courtesy, the UK government will say, okay, we are handing him over to you, let him go and serve the remaining terms when it comes to the jail. So these are all examples of what you find across the world when it comes to how countries relate on the basis of that, either mutual reciprocity, which is recognized in international law, or courtesy.
Okay, Professor Kwaja, it would be a crime for me to let you go without telling us how do we get our foot back on the global stage as the giant, very quickly in 30 seconds.
No, the ambassadors must be out. And first, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu should prioritize our foreign policy focus.
Which should be what? What's our foreign policy focus?
Security.
Great.
Economy.
Okay.
Migration. And all these three major issues I mentioned, you look at which countries should be my focus. All right. Oil, for instance.
All right. Professor Kwaja, thank you so much for your thoughts on this matter. We do really appreciate your time. Professor Chris Kwaja is a professor of international relations and strategic studies at the Center for Peace and Strategic Studies at the Modibo Adama University in Yola. Newsnight continues after this break. We'll see you on the flip side with more stories, but first, the headlines of the day.